Guys, Casey here. We got this pound dollar setup, which I've been talking about for a while. It's still really tight in this range here. We've got a strong burst right down here, and I just jumped right into it. So for those of you that are like, whoa, what's this guy doing? Hi, I'm Casey. I hope you're having a great day. And it's Thursday, so let's just make the best of it, enjoy it, be thankful. And with that being said, let's get started. Pound dollar. Looking at this trade here for a couple days, it's slowly been moving down. We're currently at a pretty solid level of resistance here. It was resistant here, resistant here, resistant here, and now it is just testing the line. So the question is, what are we going to do with this? Are we going to take a short or are we going to go long? That's always the question, and it's either long or short. And in this situation, we're still flat. We don't have any spikes happening. The downward MACD is starting to get a little bit stronger, but it's still very small. And so I'm not getting a ton of information here. The ATR is still small. We did get a little bit of a volume pickup. If you'll notice, that the last 3 days, 1, 2, 3, we've been growing. And the way that this volume indicator works, for those of you that are interested in how volume indicators work, this one shows green candles, green bars when the volume is increasing, and it's a red candle when it's decreasing. So when you have a red day and a green bar down here, all that means is the volume was increasing. So the last 3 days the volume's increased, but now that it's at the level, it's actually slowed down. So to me, that's a signal saying, oh, maybe they don't want to push this down yet. Maybe the market is not ready to push this down. So just not saying that that's a trade, but that's just my first clue. We are still in this range. We've been in it for a while, so that's another thing. It's been over a month since March 27th, and I've been looking at this for a while. And let's go ahead and look at this thing on a lower time frame. So on the 4 hour, you can see it's touched once, twice. Still moving down, still everything's pointing down. ATR's relatively flat. It is picking up a little bit. And then again on the hourly, we're moving down. So really no sign of a reversal. However, there is a touch here. It stopped, went back down, and now it's trying one more time, but it didn't quite get there. You see how the MACD has been negative, negative, negative. But every time it tries to break to the upside, it can't. So it's a very strong trend here. And every time it gets to the top of these moving averages that it can't seem to break. If we zoom out a little bit, you can see that it's been going for quite some time here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump to the 15-minute. And now the 15-minute is breaking. Again, 15-minute couldn't get to the upside. Now, these little MACD mountains are getting a little bit smaller here. There's one here and one here, and looking like we could be extending the down mountain for this one. If this one can get some momentum and a strong break here, we could be looking at a short. So this is one of those trades where we don't really know what the market's going to do, which is actually all of the trades, but we're just trying to find some clues and to think of what could happen. So let's go back to the daily again. I'm not trying to jump around too much, but when we talk about things that could happen, if we see a breakdown here, it could go down. It could go down, and it doesn't mean that it's going to go straight down. Here was a straight down move. You don't get those a lot. When you get them, rejoice, because they're great for your account. But sometimes we go like this and then like this. And so if we got a move like this, you could try to catch your part of the move, then get back in, and then catch the next part. Just trying to think ahead, trying to understand what the market's going to do, and then respond accordingly. Okay, so then another option, if we delete these lines, another option on what the market can do is it could go up to this top of this channel, and it does that pretty much straight line. And so we've already gone through this channel twice, so we don't know how many times it's going to do this. Sometimes these channels are quite long. So that's another option. And just watch this for an area of bouncing and then say, okay, I'm going to go long. So let's go ahead now. I want to just see some clues here and see what did it look like when it reversed last time. So I'm gonna go ahead and insert a rectangle here, and let's change the color on that one to lawn green, and then let's go back to the 15-minute time frame, and now we'll find that, because that's where it bounced last time. So I'm very curious to see what it looked like the last time it bounced, just to get an idea of what the indicators were telling me and what all of that was saying. Okay, so here we are. Okay, so here it is. So the last time it bounced, you can see that it tested 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it finally had a fake out. Okay, everybody's like, oh boy, this thing's going down. It's going down on April 6th. You could see it was a head fake, but then an inside candle, and then a pretty nice reverse, and then from there it just kept on going up. So if we look at that, let's see what the MACD did. So the MACD, the greens were getting smaller, a very strong burst here, and then when it crossed over, it was pretty strong. So now we can go back to the current time by looking over, and you can see what it did here on the up move too. The same thing, it popped up, top of the channel. People were going long here, strong bullish candle, faked out, and I was actually long here myself, and ended up taking a winning trade because I locked in, but it wasn't a big winner. And then it just collapsed rather quickly. You see how it was slow, 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 and then when it collapsed fast. And see, so I talk about volume and strength in the ATR and the MACD. Here it just kind of slowly did it, but then once it finally picked up steam, then it got it. So if you wanted to wait for it to pick up momentum, you might not get in on these little tiny bars, but then when you get a nice strong burst like that, it's a great signal that this thing was ready to go. And you can see the volume picked up, and it kept picking up. Volume kept picking up for quite some time. The MACD was increasing, and you see also the ATR move. So now we go back to where we're at now. We can see that it's still pushing down, and it is a very strong level, so it might take a little bit of time to make up its mind on what it's going to do. And so with that being said, I'm not completely ready to make a trade on this just because I want to see what's going to happen with it. I want to see that momentum that I'm talking about. It is currently at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we do have some news announcements in 30 minutes. So that's one of the reasons why I'm not going to be trading also, is because of the news. Normally, I don't let the news impact me too much. However, I do try to keep an eye on it, because right now I'm going to guess that the market's not going to do much. It could spike around a little bit, but I don't see it really breaking or doing much before the news comes out. And if we look at these news announcements, this is what it is. It's the initial jobless claims, and you can see that it's been pretty terrible. However, it was 300, so they're thinking that it's going to get better. You see that it's going to get better, because last time was 3.1 million, and now they're expecting 2.5 million. Okay, so that means that it's improving, and so if we get some improvement, that could be a great sign for the pound dollar, or any of the U.S. dollar pairs, to be honest. And right now, we don't know what's going to happen. If this comes out really heavily negative, we could see a really strong move on the dollar pairs against the dollar. This could be weak for the dollar. So something to really consider there when you're trading as well. Excuse me, I'm just typing a quick message. Sorry. Okay, so yeah, that's that. Now what I'm interested in now is let's take a look at the dollar. Let's take a look at the dollar on TradingView. And so we can take a look here. And so the dollar index, this is one that I've been looking at a long time. And you can see I have my trend line in place here. And what else do I have? I have my support and resistance. And so really, we're still testing this level. We've got some movement here, but we're in a very similar channel that I was talking about on the US, on the pound dollar as well. You see this? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. This is a weekly chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 weeks in a straight channel here. The resistance is right up here. So if we get positive news, it could bust this through. But remember, we are also in a pretty long-term downtrend, if you can see how strong and long this is. But we've also been going in an uptrend since officially 2008, right? So 2008, it bottomed out, and it's been going up ever since. These have had some really big up moves here. You can see this was a big move and some big down moves. When you're looking at weekly charts, you have massive moves. And that's just how it is when you're looking at those. And so that gives you a lot of opportunity to trade on some of the you'll be able to see what's happening, and you will know that there's a lot of big moves when you're looking at weekly time frames. So that's a really big opportunity to find some good trades. So right now, though, we're going to go ahead and drop it down back into a daily time frame, and you can see here that we're currently in this little sideways range. So if I draw this here, you can see we've got a channel very similar to what we were looking at earlier on the pound USD. Because why? Because it's going the opposite direction, because this was pound strength is dollar weakness and dollar strength is pound weakness, and so it's flipped up a little bit, but it's still in this range right here. And just want to say hi to everybody, to Max, Reddy, and Julia. Thanks for chatting. Hope that you guys are all doing well today. Okay, so now we'll go back to the pound dollar trade. And so really, I'm probably going to be watching this for the news. We'll see what happens. And again, I'll give you guys a little bit of a strategy that I like to use for news, because I'm not going to be here when the news goes off, but I'm going to give you a strategy. I'm just going to give you a quick strategy. So here's let's just make an assumption here that this was a news trade. You see how this works? Okay, so now I'm going to zoom this up a little bit, and we're going to say that this was a news trade right here. Wait, look, this one. Okay, so see how that looks? All right. And I'll take a look at Bitcoin here in a second. I love Bitcoin. I'm a big fan. Okay, now, if you go here and the news announcement dropped. So what this candle means is the price dropped right here. So let's just say this is a 15-minute candle. Let's say the news dropped, and boom, we had a 40-pip move because of the news. Well, then what happened is the price retraced. You see how it retraced? And then it kept retracing up here, and then it dropped. So what I do is I draw a fib level from the top of the candle, like that, and then I wait for a retracement. And so I wait for the price to pop back up into these levels. In this case, the retracement was pretty heavy. You can see it went past the 61.8, but it still wouldn't have got me stopped out. So I'll put my entry, and it depends on what my entry is. But if I'm watching this, I'll watch it down on like a 5-minute chart or so. Let's see if I can go to a 5-minute and try to find it now. There. So I'll be watching this. Wait for this thing to pop up, and you can see what happened. It popped right into the 61.8, and then it dropped. So what I like to do is find the bounce right here and then get in on a bounce. And that way I can get a better price, a tighter stop, and the trade will go pretty well. I've done that before many times, and it's great to happen on a news trade. So when the news goes out, but here's another little tip. Number one is you want to keep your risk very tight. Put your stop right above that stop loss. Don't get crazy with it. Number two, make sure it's a big deviation. So when we looked at that news announcement a minute ago, when I looked at that chart with the news on it, it's gone now, but it was like 3.1 is the number, or 2.5 million is what they're expecting. If it's positive for the dollar and it's only 1.5, then guess what? That's a big deviation. That'll move. So you want to see that deviation. If it's negative the other way at 3.5 million, then you will go long on the pound dollar, or long on any of the short against the dollar. Basically, you take any short on the dollar. So that's pretty much what we're looking at right now on that. Now, so just make sure you're using your risk. And let's take a look at Bitcoin real quick. Oh, you know what? Before I do Bitcoin, I want to look at the US yen. Okay, so I am still in my US yen trade that I was sharing with you guys. Remember this? Still in. So we don't know what's going to happen with it because it's a news trade. It doesn't really matter because it's a pretty big stop. It's about 93 pips, but you can see I've got a great 5-to-1 risk to reward ratio. I'm following this downtrend, and so if the news could very much determine whether this trade's going to be a winner or loser, but I've got a big stop, and so I'm just going to follow the charts here. And so that's how I'm looking at trading that. And oh, by the way, guys, a new podcast came out. If you guys like listening to podcasts, my link is in the description. I interview Hugh Grossman, and it's a really interesting story. So if you like to listen to stories and the trading success stories, he really motivated me and got me excited because he ended up leaving his job because he was doing so well in trading. So really cool stuff. Okay, so now I wanted to take a look at the Bitcoin, the old Bitcoin. Let's take a look at that. Okay. All right, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is really, really, really in an interesting situation. You can see we've got a nice channel here, and I got it way out here, but we could actually move it here. You can see that it's really testing these levels. And how you draw your trend lines is kind of it's always an area. It's not like a precise science, so I don't get too worked over it because, these things can go 50 pips past the trend line and still reject. They can go way past, and especially with Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's such a big mover, it's hard to pick it perfectly. But this is just a general idea. You can kind of see how this channel looks, and right now we're testing it, okay? And it hit the top of this channel, and it just dropped down hard, right? But here's the thing that's really interesting about this is that it didn't keep going, and now it's trying again. So on the second try, I'm thinking that this might have the momentum to carry it forward, okay? And so this will really be interesting because what this news announcement does. Because if the dollar goes south here, we could see a move that could really, really rock, okay? And now here's the thing. If this thing goes, we could double our money on this bad boy. Why? Why do I say that? And you know, doubling is always a fun thing, but why do I say that? Well, because because we got 13,000, so we could get to 13, 14, but let's go out a little even further. Okay? What do we have out there? We have the old high. And the old high is close to 20 grand. So if you get in today and it gets back up there, you're gold. Yeah, and double your money. Even if you only buy $1 worth of Bitcoin. The thing about Bitcoin, you can buy any amount you want. If you buy $100 of Bitcoin, it goes up to 20,000. You now have $200 in Bitcoin. You doubled your money, and you don't really have to trade. You're just holding it. So it makes it a nice setup. And so definitely looking at that as a potential thing to work on. So how do I trade CL? I don't even know what CL is. Crude oil. Okay, crude oil. Boom, 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 boom. How do I get a chart for it? I'm just going to do this one instead. Okay, so we got crude oil. Crude oil is making a comeback. And you know, this was a crazy trade because I was predicting a comeback, but I didn't know how far it was going to drop. So when it broke this, I was thinking, okay, it's going to bounce, and it did, but it went way lower than what I expected. It basically wiped out all of the traders except for the people that were really, really smart, and it did a nice bounce. So now we're moving up. I think we still have a nice possible move, but right now we're currently at a strong resistance point here. Okay, you can see we're right here right now, and so anything can happen at this point. Anything. So that's what I'm looking at there. If it breaks this level with a strong daily candle, then I think it could go up to back up to the 50 area. So something to look at on that trade. Okay, well, I'm really excited for everybody that's here today. I just want to leave everybody with one last thought here before I go. Thanks so much for tuning in. You guys are doing, oh, you know what? I do have two last thoughts. One is remember the pound trade and just keep your eyes on it. We're at a key level, so it could be a strong break. Same with Bitcoin. We're at a key level. Same with US yen. We're at a lot of key levels. So this news, sometimes the news will drive it, and it will have a tremendous impact for a year. I've seen news events push a price, and that price just kept going for like a year in a row. And so you just never know what a news announcement's going to do. And so especially right now, we're at key levels. If we get a solid news announcement, it could drive this thing really low, or it could drive it really high. Could set the tone. If we get a negative announcement, could set the tone on stocks today as well. So we could see a massive drop or massive up trading based off of what happens today. Really big, important news announcements today. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention for those of you guys that are currency traders, we got our trend breaker tool, which was recently released, and it's pretty sweet. And I'm going to give you guys a quick overview. It's available now at a discount for a short period of time, but check this. This thing's made some beast trades. You see how it crossed over this trend that it drew? This thing just rocked. This thing went 160 pips, and then this thing went 358. So it's been really good. It's pretty simple. We just have a trend formula that we created. We have trend lines. It draws trend lines, but it also has this trend formula for this yellow zig that we've created. And it even gives trend setups, and there's a lot of cool things that this does. And it's great for finding some of these trades, and we're going to give some live training with it. It's a beta, so that means there's going to be a lot of future releases that are included. So very, very cool if you're interested. I don't have a link for it, but there's a link on the website at tradingstrategyguides.com. All right, guys, trade safe today. Do the right thing. Don't make any mistakes. That's the key, right? Just don't make any mistakes. If you lose a trade, that's not a mistake. If you even make a bad entry, that's not a huge mistake. The mistake comes from letting your emotions have you take a big loss. That's where it really comes down. Let your emotions do the right thing. Do the right thing. If you take a loss, it's okay. Just don't blow up yourself. Blow up your account. Stay in the game. Stay in the game. Believe that you can do it, and you can do it. It's all in your mind. The battle's in your mind, guys. You got to have a strategy. You got to have execution, but it starts with the seeds of belief in your mind. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. This has been a great session today. Thank you so much.